A sword touches a man's shoulder and he stands up, owning two things he did not have a minute ago: a rank and a name. That name went where he went, into battle, onto castle walls, across the Atlantic in the belly of an emigrant ship, and finally onto American mailboxes, where it still sits today, looking completely ordinary. It is not. These are the 20 German surnames born from sword belts, oaths, and castle keys. And number 1 is not a name at all. Claiming it falsely was once a crime. We start where every knight started, with the men who armed him. Number 20. Before a single knight could ride, one craftsman had already decided how the battle would feel. Not with a sword, with string and wood. The name is Bogner. It comes from the Middle High German word for a bow maker, the man who shaped, strung, and sold bows, and in many towns, the man trained to use them. Bows and crossbows were the great equalizer of the medieval battlefield, the weapons that could bring down a mounted man wearing armor worth more than a village. The name still clusters in Bavaria and Austria, close to the old workshop towns. If you are a Bogner, your ancestor built the thing knights feared most. At number 19, say this name to a modern German and they picture a tank. The word is older than the machine by roughly 600 years. The name is Panzer. Long before it meant armored steel, a panzer was a shirt of mail, from an old French word for armor that guarded the belly. The panzermacher was the craftsman who built it, riveting thousands of iron rings together by hand, one ring at a time, for months. A finished mail shirt could cost as much as a small farm, which means every panzer in the old record books was a man trusted with a knight's life and a knight's fortune at the same time. Number 18. God's a second secret, and we will get to it. The name is Helm. The obvious reading is the right one first. A helm or helmet made or sold helmets, the single most valuable piece of armor a fighting man owned because it protected the only part of him that could not be stitched back together. But helm has a quieter origin too. It survives as a short form of old warrior names like Helmbrecht and Wilhelm, names built on the ancient word for protection. So the honest answer is this: not every helm descends from an armorer, but every helm descends from the language of the battlefield. Number 17. A knight's face was hidden inside that helmet, so his identity had to live somewhere else. It lived on this. The name is Schild, the German word for shield. Some Schilds descend from the Schildter, the shield maker. Others took the name from painted house signs because in cities without street numbers, a shield above your door was your address. But here is the connection that matters. The shield is where heraldry was born. A knight's coat of arms was painted onto it so that men could tell friend from enemy at full gallop. The shield was the medieval version of a name tag. Sometimes it became the name itself. Quick pause. This channel decodes surnames one archive at a time, and this is only our second episode. If your name deserves the same treatment, subscribe now. Back to the list. Number 16 is the longest name on this list, and it sounds like a battle cry. It is actually a job title. The name is Schwertfeger. It means sword polisher. Schwert, the sword, and fegen, to clean or scour. A knight might carry the same blade for decades, and the Schwertfeger was the craftsman who kept it alive, grinding out the notches, polishing away the rust, keeping the edge honest. In a world where a sword was handed from father to son like land, the man who maintained it held a position of real trust. Spellings vary between Schwertfeger and Schwertfeger, and American records show the name drifting almost as soon as it landed. Number 15 leads a double life, and both lives involve a blade. The name is Degen. Ask a modern German, and they will tell you a Degen is a dueling sword. Fencers still use the word for the épée, but the surname is older than that meaning. In Middle High German, a Degen was a warrior, a hero, a word related to the Old English Thane. Names like Degen and Degenhardt, the hardy warrior, were given to fighting men centuries before the word ever meant a weapon, which makes this the hinge of our list. Up to now, the names pointed at equipment. From here on, they point at men. Number 14. Medieval monasteries had a problem. They owned enormous lands, and their monks were forbidden to shed blood, so the church hired a sword. The name is Vogt. It comes from the Latin advocatus, the one called in to act for another. A Vogt was the armed protector and administrator of church lands and towns. He collected the taxes, held the court, and led the fighting men, all in the name of a lord who could not. The office existed in almost every region of the German-speaking world, which is why the name is everywhere today. Vogt, Voigt, Voigt. If the name is yours, your ancestor was the man the abbot sent for. Number 13 is a name Americans have heard in history class without knowing it began as a compliment. The name is Junker. It comes from the Middle High German Jungherr, the young lord, a nobleman's son, not yet knighted, still learning the trade of war. Centuries later, the word attached itself to the landed gentry of Prussia, the officer families who filled the Kaiser's army. Otto von Bismarck himself was born a Junker. As a surname, it usually marks descent from a young nobleman's household, or from a man who carried himself like one, and the records rarely say which. Either way, the word inside your name means a lord in the making. Now we enter the strangest chapter of German knighthood. Across the Holy Roman Empire, most knights were not free men. They were called ministeriales, legally unfree, unable to marry or move without their lord's consent. And yet they were trained, armed and mounted like nobility, and they ran the empire's great households. 4 offices stood at the top of that world, and the next 4 names are those offices, frozen into families. The first is number 12. The name is Kämmerer, the chamberlain, the keeper of the chamber, the treasury, the documents, and the keys. When a lord wanted to know what he owned, he did not ask his knights. He asked his Kämmerer. The second office, at number 11, answered a darker question. Who do you trust with your cup? The name is Schenk. It comes from the verb schenken, to pour. The Schenk was the cupbearer, the officer who poured the Lord's wine, and in an age when poison was politics, that duty was reserved for men whose loyalty was beyond question. The office became so prestigious that noble families wore it as a title: Schenk von Limpurg, Schenk von Stauffenberg. Today, Schenken also means to give someone a gift in German, a fitting afterlife for a name that began with an outstretched hand. The third office ran everything, and it sits at number 10. The name is Truxess. The Truxess was the seneschal, the steward, the man who commanded the Lord's table, provisions, and household staff. In the Holy Roman Empire, the office reached all the way to the top. The Truxess von Waldburg family held the post of imperial steward as a hereditary right, and one of them, Georg, commanded armies in the field. The name is rare in America and often misspelled because immigration clerks had no idea what to do with it. If you carry any version of it, your family name is a job description from the emperor's household. And the fourth office, number 9, is the best story on this list because it is the story of a servant who conquered the world's armies. The name is Marshal. Take it apart, and it is humble. The old Germanic Mara, the horse, and Skalk, the servant. The horse servant, the stable hand. But cavalry was the heart of medieval war, and the man who mastered the horses soon commanded the men who rode them. The stable servant became the officer who organized the entire army on the march. Today, in almost every military on earth, Marshal is the highest rank a soldier can hold. The servant's word outranks the general. Equipment, offices, duty. The next 5 names cut closer. They describe what a man was. Number 8 is where every knight's story began, usually at the age of 14. The name is Napa, the squire. A boy left home at 7 to serve as a page, and at 14 he became a Napa. He carried the lances, dressed his knight for battle, and followed him into it. But here is what the storybooks leave out. Knighthood cost money, horses, armor, ceremony. Many squires could never afford the final step. They served for decades and died as squires, and the rank froze into their family's name. Napa is a name that says almost, and in a way that makes it more honest than most. Number 7. In a medieval German courtroom, some verdicts were not argued. They were fought. The name is Kempf. It comes from the Middle High German Kämpfe, itself from the Latin campio, the champion. When trial by combat was legal, a party who could not fight, a widow, a cleric, an old man, could hire a professional to fight in their place. That professional was the Kämpfi. The name also attached to fighters and duelists in general, which is why it survives in so many forms. Kempf, Kampf, Kämpfer. If it is your name, someone in your line fought for a living, possibly for justice, one duel at a time. Number 6 is carried by hundreds of thousands of people, and almost all of them read it wrong. The name is Hermann. It looks like Herr plus Mann, the Lord's man, and generations of family legends have been built on that reading. The archives say otherwise. Hermann comes from the old given name Harriman, Harry, the army, and man, the army man. It was one of the most popular warrior names of the German Middle Ages, and it is the name later attached to Arminius, the chieftain who destroyed 3 Roman legions, remembered in Germany simply as Hermann. So no, the name does not mean your ancestor served a lord. It means he was named for war itself. Some names do not hint, and number 5 is one of them. The name is Edelman. It means nobleman, plainly and simply. Edel, noble, and man, man. In the medieval order, the edelman ranked below the count and the knight, but above the free citizens and the great mass of the unfree. Now the honest caveat, because this channel deals in records, not flattery. The name was sometimes given to a nobleman's servant, and sometimes with a wink to a peasant who carried himself like a lord. But where the name is genuine, it marks the lower nobility itself, not a man who served the noble class, a member of it. You knew this name was coming. The only question was where. Number 4. The name is Ritter, the German word for knight, from the Middle High German Reiter, the rider, the mounted warrior. The earliest known German record is a man called Henricus Ritherus, written down in the city of Worms in the year 1216. Today, roughly 50,000 people carry the name in Germany and more than 30,000 in the United States. So why is it only number 4? Because of a paradox the archives insist on. Actual knights rarely needed to be named Ritter. They were named for their castles and their estates. The surname most often marked a man who served a knight or rode like one, which is exactly why the last 3 names on this list outrank it. Number 3 puts your ancestor inside the castle walls, by contract. The name is Bergman, literally the castle man. When a lord built a castle, he could not garrison it alone, so he installed knights called Bergmannen. They swore to defend the walls, lived inside the castle or in fortified houses at its foot, and received pay or a fief in return. It even had a name of its own, the Burgelhen, the castle fief. These were fighting men of the ministerial class, knights on permanent garrison duty. Most surnames tell you what a man did. This one tells you where he stood, on the wall, armed, between the lord and everything outside. The name at number 2 is not a job, not a nickname, and not a hint. It is a rank. The name is Freiherr, the free lord. In the hierarchy of the empire, it stood above the knight and below the count, and it described a nobleman who held his land free of any lord in between, answering only upward. And this is where the story of the unfree knights pays off. The most successful ministerial families climbed, generation by generation, until some of them entered exactly this rank. Freiherr is usually translated into English as Baron. If it sits anywhere in your family tree, so does a coronet. And number 1 is not one name at all. It is 3 letters, von, the particle that sits in front of thousands of German surnames and the most argued over syllable in the language. Originally, it just meant from Berg, from the mountain. And here is the honest truth first. Plenty of von names, especially in northern Germany, never had anything to do with nobility. But over the centuries, von hardened into the signature of the noble class, and the law began to guard it. In the Kaiser's Germany, taking a von you had no right to was a punishable offense, a name so valuable it needed legal protection. Then came 1919. The Weimar Constitution abolished the nobility's privileges. Titles became nothing more than parts of surnames, and no new ones could ever be granted again. Austria went further and banned them outright. And in America, the von often did not survive the crossing at all. Some families dropped it. Others welded it into a single word, which is why American records are full of names like von der Heide and von Berg, a whole aristocratic grammar hiding in plain sight. If there is a von in your family's past, somewhere behind it stands the oldest promise on this list, a name granted, not inherited, by accident. 20 names. Craftsmen who armed knights, unfree men who outserved the free, squires who never got the accolade, and 3 letters the law once protected. Now, one thing this channel will always tell you straight: a surname is evidence, not proof. Genealogists will tell you that most family legends about a noble ancestor do not survive contact with the archives. But every one of these names is a real door, and the records behind it are real too. So here is where you come in. Tell us where you're listening from, and drop your surname in the comments, even if it was not on this list. If it is German, we will decode it in a future episode. And if you think there is a sword somewhere in your family tree, tell us that story too. And before you go, not every name in America faded slowly. Thousands of them were erased deliberately in a matter of months. The year was 1917. That story is coming. And if you want to see it, Subscribe now. Until then, your name was there.